Welcome to the Robinsley Podcast. Today, I'll be conducting a Robert's Corner. It was an old segment I did in the start of the podcast, especially when I think the first year actually, and we did it last month, and I felt it was a good addition. I will still be talking about this month's theme, but when uh, um, one of the weeks, I'll be doing this. So it's less formal, arguably shorter, but it'll be a monthly focus on the monthly theme with me as just sharing my thoughts, what the guests we have. I'm always very thankful to get guests, those who are willing to share, take some time out to kind of share their thoughts, their experiences. It's been a wonderful experience, and I just want to start by giving a disclaimer. If you are in the States and you are struggling, I encourage you to call 988, or find a coworker. If you are faith based, find someone who you can talk to. If you're not, find someone you trust. I just whatever community that you feel comfortable enough to share, um, or to share the need that you need help, whatever that looks like. And I encourage you to do that. As a disclaimer, I know we have listeners and watchers around the world. I just want to also thank you. And, when it comes to um, some of the hotlines, I do put them on my website. I'm not sure how accurate some of them are still, but I do find encouraging at least to know what emergency services are there in case there is that need. I wanted to start off with a story. I was reading this. It was actually on the internet. It was a short story, and I'm just going to read it verbatim of how it was written. And I thought it was very intriguing, especially when we're talking about this idea of, when we are talking about finding our why and what that means. It reads this. I used to tell a story about a man walking down the street in the middle of the big city and how he came upon a construction site. Bulldozers, earth moving machines were busy on site. And he came across three men in a ditch. He asked the first man, "What are you doing?" And he responded, "I'm digging a ditch." That's what the first man said. Our protagonist asked the second man, "What are you doing?" "We're digging a ditch for the water line for the building going up over there," the second man said. And then the protagonist asked the third man, "What are you doing?" The man looked up and replied, "We're building a cathedral. It will be a big, beautiful cathedral with 5 big, tall spires and beautiful stained glass windows. It will seat 500 people. It will be the most beautiful church in the city. That is what we are doing." Every time he goes on, is every time I tell the story, I ask the audience, which of these men do you think is the most motivated? And it's kind of obvious the third. He's more descriptive. He's excited, but in essence, he is just digging a ditch at that moment. But he could, he shares his vision with others, inspires others. There's something about this story that I feel it kind of goes parallel to why finding what our why is. It could be small in the very beginning. It could be like, I want to be better at connecting. Quite frankly, I think about my own journey, and like now that I've been working for the mental health field for almost 4 years, and it's been a journey because I never thought I would. I have lived experience. Some would argue, do you want to do all this? I'm doing my podcast, but it's one thing to do a podcast to share insight, but actually working in the field is a little bit different. No, I would say it is different. So the question is, why? Why did I go back to something that may have caused me a lot a lot of bad memories or whatever the case may be. Even though there was a lot of helpful moments and things that strides forward, um, some would say, "Oh, isn't that a lot to see these people suffer the same way or similar to what you have?" And honestly, I kind of have that vision, even though uh, getting closer to the vision that the third person had. It's 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 like reframing 101. I feel uh, people will say, "Isn't it hard?" I'm like, my question is, when wasn't it hard? When was any of this not hard? Is it hard seeing people struggling like you? No. It's not that it's easy. It's just it's the person may need help, may need encouragement. I would, I would have appreciated some of those times when I felt I was not encouraged. Well, it must be heavy and hard. And like again, I feel the question's odd to me because for me, at the same time, I didn't think this would be a field that I would venture into. A lot of times we outsource our ideals or what we would like to do in our lives to fit in a box. This was definitely not in the box when I first thought about working in in the working environment. I thought it would be something that would be financially more, I guess, with more possibilities. But then again, it was so vague and so objective. It became useless, especially when I became less healthy in my mind. And I just remembered reading this story briefly. It was not that long. It was actually getting prepared to record this. I was like, what can I add? I like stories. I like stories that kind of are relatable. I read through several before coming on, and I thought this one just was simple and kind of beautiful. The person was proud. Obviously, he's not. He sees a bigger picture. He sees that this is not just a ditch. This is not just one thing. Sometimes, at least I remember, I might have minimized a lot of notable steps forward. I think one of the major ones I didn't really appreciate till later was going to group meetings. I was reluctant for a long time just because I was bitter and I felt very much not connected, almost like I didn't want to connect because that I felt a little hurt, but I couldn't describe it and didn't process it well at the time, and I felt like they had it easy, or they didn't. They had all these resources, this kind of uprightness. I was hurt. I didn't have a lot of answers. Came out of the military, and when I went to one meeting, and yeah, it may see on the surface this person's complaining about not being able to do certain things that I felt it was mind-numbingly kind of it got me frustrated. It got me frustrated. I'm like, why are you complaining? Why are you complaining? You're here. You were receiving treatment. I wasn't. I tried to end my life. You're here. No one even knew I was struggling that hard. Why are you complaining? And because I thought I was upright, I felt I felt I don't want to be like these people. And it's funny because purpose works a funny way because I was didn't really think about my response and reaction being kind of disproportional, but it was because a part of me was just hurt. And I wanted people to know because I felt scared. And I didn't admit these things for a long time. And because of that, it was not till later that I started going to groups. And not only that, I became facilitator of a group and started doing groups at the local drop-in syndrome, which arguably is part of the reason I'm working in the mental health field like I am. I got exposure, and funny enough, I became to like more and more this kind of work. Never thinking I would. Um, no, I think the biggest step forward was just to allow myself to discover what better means for me. Is better just resting like everyone else, objectively, only listening, only feeling good feelings, only being around good plans, sound plans, everything being very coordinated. For me, it wasn't. For me, it was allowing myself to be better, to get better, being understanding, just like I said before, that it's going to be uncomfortable and it'll get worse before it gets better. Am I allowed to get better? Am I allowed to say no? If mental health is so different for each individual, where is that line that we say that this person is less than, unable to make that decision for himself? Why is a moderately successful life not worth enough for those around the person suffering? A lot of questions. But the questions that I need to answer. A lot of times, and like I didn't use this quote for this month, but I think about Mother Teresa in this quote. She says, "The most terrible poverty is loneliness and the feeling of being unloved." A lot of times, the simple emotions, even though they feel like, oh, I'm an adult, I shouldn't be feeling left out. Well, whether you don't want to say it, you still felt it, and whether you and asking the question, why does it matter so much about expressing that you felt left out? Is it because you shouldn't feel this way? And these are things that I've learned through time, because I feel that time period of bitterness and may have been shortened. I couldn't say, because for one, I was also discovering a lot of things that I was struggling, and it was, and if anyone has been through medication management for mental health, it is sometimes a real struggle for a lot. Body changes, a lot of people struggle in a lot of different ways. I think a lot of times we can be inspired by things we didn't really know. But I want to about people. I was going to talk about before I continue. I wanted to mention there was this one. Give me a second. I'll grab it right here if you don't mind. I'm just gonna. It was a quote I used earlier for this month. I couldn't find it in my settings on the side, but here it is. It says here, the meaning of life is not to find your gift. The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. One thing, Pablo Picasso, a lot of times people get confused, Van Gogh and Pablo Picasso. And honestly, I sometimes forget. But one thing that interesting, I want to give you a little fact about Pablo Picasso in regards to his character and just what he didn't know. He loved painting. He did a lot of amazing paintings, sculptures, and he was very well renowned. There's also a time period when people a lot of time when the Mona Lisa was stolen, he was accused of he was one of the suspects. But beyond the curious life and even the promiscuous life of Pablo Picasso, one thing that was interesting regarding his paintings that I thought was interesting. Well, I don't think a lot of people. I didn't know this. It says, "Did you know that Pablo Picasso was colorblind? He only found out about his inability to see colors a few months before he died. He actually thought that the paintings he made during his blue period were yellow, and the ones he made during his pink period were actually green. So it's interesting. Um, which is an interesting fact about Pablo Picasso, but it also reminds us of, even if we have limitations, doesn't mean we can't breed beautiful things or beautiful creations. And Pablo Picasso um, has always been like a renowned painter. However, it only, I guess, science, or he never got, they never really checked his ability to see colors at that time, but he was able to make these wonderful contributions to our community. However, um, his purpose, when we think about creative model, I just feel the biggest limitations we can give ourselves are the ones we say we can't before we even try. I wonder if Pablo Picasso knew he was colorblind before, would he continue to feel that he could paint, or would it be more of a barrier? I say this as a thought. Actually, I don't know personally. I do feel he was very, very talented. However, people with learning disabilities, people with mental health situations, are we limited only to those things that ail us, or are we able to go beyond besides it? And then it kind of goes in tandem of the idea of finding our why. Yasmin Mogahed says, resilience is very different from than being numb. Resilience means that you experience, you feel, you fail, you hurt, you fall, but you keep going. So I feel just like in my beginning, when someone would ask, isn't that a lot of work? I do a lot of these podcasts, I do a gaming thing, I do a lot of video editing. And I'm like, aren't you tired? Isn't that a lot? Isn't it hard to see like the kind of work you do? And like, for me, I've taken a lot of time, and it's not perfect. I constantly try to reflect on my reactions and how I responded and why this was hurtful. Why did this bother me so much? So because of that continued practice, I kind of thought the question was pretty obvious. Question, they always say don't ask a question with a question, but I did anyway. I said, when was it ever not hard? I thought of the times when I felt left out. I thought of the times when I was very sick with my mental health symptoms. I thought of the times when I felt unheard, unseen for something that I was suffering with. And during those times, the fact that I'm able to feel heard and continue to share, even in regards to just talking about the podcast, talk to other people who are as passionate or just wants to continue to share what they experience to hopefully help those who are listening. But like we know, it's a subjective reality. Whatever is said here doesn't mean it's going to work exactly well for you. However, it's the power of advocacy, that there may be a third option besides the two. So I do like what Yasmin Mogahed says here. Kind of said this, but what does resilience mean to you, and what ways has it impacted you and those around you? Well, I feel it has practicing not to run away from difficult moments and feel things, not numb them, not minimize them, not say I didn't care anyway, allowed me to cry, to struggle, to hurt, to struggle and hurt some more. And during that, I learned a lot about myself and what is my values, why I do what I do. Um, and we're not islands, so I can't say with 100% certainty it's gonna hurt me. And life continues. I don't have this this quick fix, step one, step two. It's just it's a constant. But I just recognize the importance of self reflection. I recognize the importance of community of people. So someone can, I'm not perfect. I'm human, but if someone can really irritate me or frustrate me, but I try to remember who the person is to me. There's so many reasons for us to kind of create reasons to not talk to the person who may have hurt you or may have misstepped or overstepped, overreached. There's times also to walk away. I'm not saying that. I'm not promoting just to avoid your own self protection and care, but at the same time, holding on to bitterness, I feel definitely hasn't been the road towards resilience. Even though I'm saying I'm numb, I'm only numb to reflect I'm numb on the outside in this context. And I'm not really numb because the fact that I have to say that I need to be numb means that I'm really just avoiding a feeling because I want to be seen at that moment that doesn't impact me, which I feel is counterintuitive because the fact that matters you're going to live with yourself later, and the situation, the problem, the feeling you might have experienced may still be there, or it may dull. And I feel that's even worse because you may not be able to really recognize what your needs, wants, and desires are. So pain is supposed to feel, at least from my context, from my experience, is supposed to feel painful. If I had a relationship and there's no avoiding it. It's not like, oh, this person wasn't that great anyway. It's still a loss and embracing that loss, but not being a doormat, learning to process it, and at the same time being able to say no. Um, Fyodor Dostoevsky, I'm really bad at saying this. The mystery of the human existence lies not in staying alive, but finding something to live for. I think this can be very a bold kind of statement, but I think it's a powerful one too. If you don't think of in extremes, you just kind of subjectively look at your life. So if I'm a person who is struggling with substance use or struggling with something that that makes me addicted to a negative habit, saying a statement like I'll be better, I will do anything and everything, even if it means that I'll run myself ragged to how do you say, give something to my loved ones that I wasn't able to get, or my life. It's the what I'm trying to say is the environment is very different. So if I was in combat, or I'm a firefighter, and I run into a building and save a person who's unable to save themselves, that is courageous. But I've been saying this and I'm reminding myself also of this. Maybe the most courageous thing any of us can do when we're home, when we're struggling at work, when we're struggling in our relationships, when we're struggling in finding connections or community, maybe the bravest and courageous thing for us to do is to live well, despite it all. Purpose, finding something to live for. Yeah, that is something that is a journey that I feel is, at least from my experience, that is more of a process than a destination. I'm becoming something better, and usually when I get there, it's never static. I try not to be static. I I am remembering. I remember the accomplishments, but I also learn to think bigger. Like the third person in the story before, I look at not just, oh, it's, the person says, um, the second person says, oh, we're digging a ditch for the water lines for the buildings going up above over there. So that's still better than we're just digging a ditch. But the third person just sees the vision where he or she would like, or sees what this process may lead to. So I think it's a beautiful thing when you allow that space and kind of pliability to be. I'm not there yet, but it's almost you are affirming that you're allowed to get better, or you're not, depending on this. Updates. A lot of times I have my guests share a little bit about what brought them here, why do they do what they do. A lot of you already know a little bit of my story. Some of my story is actually on the website. However, updates when it comes to Robert's Corner is more of updates of Revive Ministries, and then maybe a little bit of how I'm doing. Revive Ministries, it's going. I'm really. I guess the biggest thing I keep is never. I would say never is static. Never is like, okay, I'm guaranteed. I always am looking for new, exciting guests that want to share their story, or are passionate, driven to share their story. Last few years I've been doing these themes, and I love it. I love just kind of having a different slot, but I also wanted to have kind of these moments where I'm able to just talk directly to those who are listening. And I think that hopefully this Robert's Corner will be a nice addition. So every month you'll see me, but not in the same kind of banners as you would see the monthly theme, but in this more relaxed and more less. I guess relaxed is enough. A relaxed setting to kind of address what's happening with a theme, but also with less structure, because it's just me sharing and going off what I've heard the guest that has come on here, and also my lived experience. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited that it doesn't put so much pressure. People's schedules are hard, but also allows me to still stay connected with those who are listening directly. I think it's a nice little balance. Music Monday is still a thing. I just like the idea of incorporating music. I know it's been a lot of me singing, and trying to get more singers, trying to get more musicians. But that's going to be an ongoing process of how that will be rolled out. If you have any questions or you are interested to learn more, again, info@reviveministryfl.com. Info@reviveministryfl.com is the email. Just reach out if you have any questions in regards to that. It's not really an audio version because Spotify has their own kind of. So you might have seen that kind of. They want that as separate, and for me, Music Mondays now, all of it's just going to be on the YouTube channel. So if you're wondering why there's no Music Monday on the actual audio version, is just because of policy and rules of Spotify. I'm not sure if that's going to warrant me to change kind of platforms when it comes to my audio podcast. As of right now, I'm just sitting still, and I at the same time, I want to say I appreciate each one of you. This process, since 2019 to now, and for me, it's just a joy to continue to be able to have these conversations. But beyond that, there's not much updates. Work is going well for me. I continue to love what I do what I do, and try to do it the best I can. But as I said, like, it is a process, and I feel excited that I do feel finding a a sector of work that I really feel I can help. And it may seem obvious for others, but it was not the plan at first. Revive Ministry was planned before all this. It wasn't trying to get into it because Revive Ministry. I feel that they're very different things. Um, but I do appreciate it. It has helped. But I'll keep you updated in this Robert's Corner about updates coming regarding Revive Ministries. And again, um, thank you. Moving forward, I just want to say we're going into the second, another notable quote from Bishop T.D. Jakes. It says, "If you can't figure out your purpose, figure out your passion. For your passion will lead you to the right, lead you right into your purpose." So, like, if you're, I always bring up the chef thing, but I think it's a very, if you're a moderate cook, but you also very much love to bring people together. Just remember, maybe you remember times with your family, and it's just, you just have a passion about community. So you hone your skills to be a better and better cook. And later on, you're like wondering, how did I become a cook? I was just like a moderate cook. Because you were passionate. Your you cooking was the vessel to get to your passion, and it was to serve others and to bring that community that reminds you. And obviously, there's a lot more complexity to that, but it's really, where does it start? We don't know at the end, when a person who's exceptional at whatever it is, when, dare I say, even Pele, when he was first started playing soccer or football, did he know he's going to be that good? A lot of us don't, and I do feel a lot of times we think too big at first. I think a lot of times it starts from ourselves. What is our values? What is important to us? And I hate to make it sound so objective, because it's not. I just I just really appreciate what Bishop T.D. Jakes, because you may end up, I will say this way, you may end up to your purpose in such an unorthodox way, and than what you first expected. John F. Kennedy says, efforts and courage are not enough without purpose and direction. I think that's very true. A lot of times we could grind it out, but we may be very disappointed or even bitter. And in regards to my own context, even though this is not a proselytizing podcast, however, a parable reminds me of this very well. The prodigal son, those who are faith-based or not may even know this story. Son comes back, the father embraces, makes a big feast, get the fatted calf, and they're celebrating, and the brother is just like, "I've been here. Why are you doing this? This is just I can't believe you're doing this." So I think a lot of us sometimes we maybe wanted to do the good things, but we're doing the good things for the wrong reasons. I think there's lessons in there of the big brother. He had several opportunities, and even if you look at non-faith based, there's a lot of lessons there. So what hasn't been said about the whole circumstances, why, if he felt this way of being unappreciated, why didn't he talk to the father prior? Why is it only his actions that he's depending without conversation? So I think sometimes our purpose and direction needs to be expressed. If you're feeling like you're shortchanged, sitting there and hoping someone will notice, sometimes, I would say from my experience, may lead to further bitterness and further distances, feeling a sense of isolation, or kind of dare I say, like you're the black sheep, unappreciated. But a lot of times, unfortunately, especially today, I realize that most people don't even know that other people have things going on in their lives. So I do, we could be our worst enemies, or we could be our best advocates. So it's kind of that little, and sometimes it's very, it's just choices and how we view them may be the catalyst that will propel us to one way or another. For, I would say, I lost 7 years of probably enjoying, again, support and learning from support groups and being around peers instead of being bitter. I think I lost time to heal, but I don't look at that as loss per se. I don't, none of these things, unfortunately, they'll take the time it takes. However, looking back, that's a lesson I feel I've learned very clearly, but it was not easy. Last question, one of the last questions. Well, yeah, the last question before final thoughts. Why do you feel Why do you feel that finding purpose and finding, or finding our way, or our why? I mean, is important today. I think it's important um, because how, I'll say it this way: how connected and disconnected we are. So, uh, we may be connected in the sense that I could, on my fingertips, I could see what's available. I could see all these advice and these self-help things and all these things that would make happiness. But my question is a very, I guess, rational one. How does a person who's marketing something for you to buy know what is happiness for you? I feel a lot of times it's very much dependent on you seeing that your happiness is an objective reality that needs less of you. And I would argue against that. I think a lot, it's not that these things, these elements that can be helpful, technology, convenience wise, are not. I'm not saying they're bad per se, but what is bad and why I feel finding our purpose is important today is because we outsource what our purpose should be. Our purpose, uh, at least from my experience, does a better does better for us when it comes from us, when it subjectively comes from our values, our context, and what we would like to be a part of our life or not part of our life. What is important for us? And going off that. But when we're on the grind and we are feeling that our happiness is hinged on these objective achievements, objective monetary gains, we end up never really knowing or experiencing enough of it. I'm not saying you won't find some happiness if you have a very good handle on your finances and you're like doing very well, safety, security wise. However, you still have to live in your own mind. So if you outsource too much of what is happiness, you may not recognize or even know what that may look like. And I feel it's very important, um, because I feel in essence you're relinquishing your ability to choose what that may be. So sometimes people experience loss, not just losing a person, but losing an ability to do a certain type of work. Does that mean that that person is now devalued and unvaluable anymore? Family members may argue no, the person is valuable. But how does that person who has experienced this feel it too? So I feel that's where finding our why is important, because it will change. It may change in dramatic ways depending on how life event happens, or if just we're just too afraid to make a choice for our own happiness, or whatever that looks like. Final thoughts is simply I encourage you to find, not outsource what happiness, what your why may be or become. And if you find out it doesn't work, or what your purpose didn't seem to be, I would say, just like Moga had, it's that resilience. It's feeling those feelings, not dismissing, not pointing the finger of who. Yeah, there might be some people who maybe led you astray, but you still had the choice to say yes or no. Accountability of that and learning from the experiencing. You feel, you fail, you hurt, you fail some more, but you keep going. These things I feel may be very, very helpful for you. And another final thought is a negative doesn't make another a negative against a person situation doesn't get better by expressing another negative. I felt a certain uncomfortableness being around people I felt had it easier when I first got out of the military, which didn't make my life better. Not to say it would make my life better to force myself to do it because someone told me to, but it didn't make it better because I felt in my reality at that time that I was hurt and they shouldn't be as hurt. And I don't feel heard. And I'm scared with this new mental health issue. And I don't know who to talk to, but I don't want to talk to them because it reflects on how much I didn't have when I needed something. And when I have these strong emotions, when I realize that these are the reasons why I was bitter, that I was hurt, that I felt that when I see this contrast, I just feel more a reminder of what I didn't have. And that didn't make me feel good, and I didn't want to be around it. And I part of the way I got back and to it was I forgave myself. I forgave who I was, forgave the fact that I made that choice. I wasn't, oh, how could you? You lost time. I gained. It's subjective. I learned something from this experience. So we know this with grief. At least a lot of people have promoted it. Take the time it takes. You don't rush grief. Nor do you rush these uncomfortable. But I would say, when I say not rush, it's not also mean ignore. It's like the process will be slow, at least from my experience. But I ask myself, and the final thought will be, am I allowed to get better? And if I'm not allowed to get better, are they not allowed to get better? And how would that shape your world if everyone that you see is not allowed to get better, including yourself? So I encourage you to be kinder to yourself, kinder to those around you. If you're kind to yourself, the likelihood may be higher that you'll be kinder to those. But if you're not kind to yourself and you're subjected to this idea that you should have been better, you should have not gone sick, or that this is taking too long, it may shape a very negative view, and how you see the world will be viewed through these lenses. I want to say thank you again for those who are watching. Always check us out. ReviveMinistriesFL.com is our website, our Instagram, and also our YouTube. Just check us out. If you have any questions, go to info@ReviveMinistriesFL.com. I'll leave you with this last quote from Henry David Thoreau. He says, "What you get by achieving your goals is not as important as what you become by achieving your goals."